Let me first, friends, introduce myself. I am Dr. Anand Prakash. I taught English literature for a long time in Delhi University. Today, I'll be presenting my version of the famous Afro-American novel, The Bluest Eye, written by Toni Morrison. This is one of the most famous novels written by this author, and it created waves immediately after it was published in 1970. This writer, Toni Morrison, who is a black woman writer of America of the recent times, she is there still. She was born in 1930, and this and other novels of hers made her so well known in the world of English fiction that finally in the 1990s she got the Nobel Prize for Literature. Apart from that, she has been taking up in fiction and outside fiction the cause of women in America and the rest of the world. Now, these are the distinctive features of this writer. Now, before I begin talking about this novel, let me relate myself, ourselves, you included, to the issue that this writer has focused upon in this novel. The issue is that of a black woman writer in America. Now, let me tell you that we cannot, as Indians, directly understand the problems faced by black women and black men in America. Our social and cultural parallel of this would be the Dalit today in our country. A person in our society who is always at the receiving end of the powers that be, the powerful people in the country. These people always live away from attention. Nobody bothers about their problems. Nobody looks at them with any sense of equality. They are considered low, and in India, for instance, for a long time, they have been untouchables. Now, not exactly the same, but this kind of a fate is also that of the black person in America. And the black community in America always suffers what is called social segregation. They are not a part of the mainstream American culture. It's only lately, in the second half of the 20th century, that we see these people being seen by the sensitive sections of America as their equals. And yet, they have a long way to go in establishing their dignity in American life. Now, so if we have to understand the problems faced by the central character and characters in this novel, then we have to think of our own people who were for a long time called untouchables, which is a wrong word, which is a bad word, and now who are called Dalits. So, keeping this parallel in mind, let's look at this novel that this author wrote in 1970. Now, first let me explain the meaning of being a black woman writer in America. Now, as I have already said, that the blacks are victims of social prejudice. They are considered dirty, they are considered ugly, they are considered unclean, they are considered unhygienic, and of course, they don't get any kind of sympathy and appreciation in the cultural and educational life, apart from the society in which they live. If one is black and a woman, then that is a double kind of curse, because women in any case are second-rate citizens, as they are considered all over the world. And if one is a black person and a woman, then, as I already have said, that they suffer a kind of double curse. And if they are writers, then the problem is further compounded, because a writer by nature and by profession is supposed to be still more sensitive than the rest of the masses. You can say that if you are a black person and if you are a woman in America, then maybe after 20 or 30 years of living under the cloud of prejudice, you will lose some of those qualities with which you were born, with which the black American woman was born. But if you are a writer, then you are all the time sensitive. You all the time understand the pain, not only suffered by yourself, but also suffered by the people of your category. So it's really very brave of this person to have persisted with being a woman, being a black woman, and being a writer, to live with dignity, surrounded as she is by people who hold a kind of prejudice against her. So with this we begin discussing this particular novel. What is the significance of the bluest eye? What does the writer mean by saying that she is talking about the bluest eye and its significance in a woman's life? Now, most of the Indians have either brown eyes or black eyes. They don't have blue eyes. In Europe also, if one is white, then one has blue eyes. But if one is black, or one has gone to America or European countries from this side of the world, then most of them have black eyes. But the whites have generally black eyes, and if a woman has black eyes, then she is supposed to be beautiful. Now the protagonist, the central character of this novel, is a girl called Piccola. Now she is born in a very poor family, and she has black eyes, and somehow people have been telling her that she is ugly. And later on, as she grows up, in the process of growing up, she understands that perhaps she is ugly not because her color is black, but because her eyes are not blue. They are also black. And how she wishes that the eyes turned blue, so that people looked at her with a sense of admiration. So this is the dilemma that the central character in this novel faces, and there is a kind of tragic sense of torment, mental torture that this central character of the novel suffers. Poverty, of course, is a difficulty that one can't comprehend unless one is poor. And Piccola, the central character of this novel, is born in a poor family, a family in which her father and mother always quarrel, always fight, and particularly in the evening, the father goes out, and when he comes back towards the end of the day, late in the evening, then he is totally drunk. In fact, sometimes he is so drunk, as is shown in the novel, and this is one of the most shocking incidents that the writer presented in the novel, that one day he rapes his own daughter, and his daughter's name is Piccola, the person I am talking about. How does this innocent person, a young, ordinary looking girl of, let's say, adolescent age, take this kind of a trauma that she suffers at the hands of her father? And the author, being a woman, knows that there are certain consequences that a pregnant, unmarried young girl in a family faces, because this girl has become pregnant from her father. So this is the situation that is at the center, and the writer has deliberately constructed this incident in the novel in order to send across the message to the readers of the world, to the readers of the English-knowing world particularly, that Piccola has a tragedy inside her that is difficult to fathom, difficult to measure by any person who is neither black nor a woman, nor belonging to a situation of this kind. Now, this could be quite simple, and it might appear to be a horror story, but no, this novel doesn't talk about the horror. The novel talks about the difference in the distance that exists between the blacks and the whites. For instance, if one is a black child, then one goes to the school, and one studies a curriculum which is drawn up basically for the white child, and the white child learns what from the educational system. Now right in the beginning, the author has presented what is supposed to be a metaphor, and I'll talk about this metaphor to begin with, and later on I'll come back to the original point. This is what the young child in the school learns from the curriculum that he or she has to study. These are the lines in the beginning of the novel, and let's have a look at these lines. The lines occur like this in the novel. The picture is the ideal. That's what it is. And then the quotation begins. Here is the house. It is green and white. It has a red door. It is very pretty. Here is the family. Mother, father, Dick and Jane live in the green and white house. The description goes on, and the way the words are printed, that shows that it is going to be the ideal picture of the American household, where there would be a house, it would have colors, it has a red door, it is very pretty, and then there is a family, and the moment you think of family, you think of mother, father, Dick and Jane. That is the mother and the father, and there is a male child and there is a female child. And then once again, they live in the green and white house. Now this is the ideal picture, and most of the white community in America realizes and lives this picture in their life. But then, if they don't, even then they have to measure up to, even then they have to think of themselves in terms of such a house and such a picture of life that is presented before them by the curriculum. Now imagine the same kind of a message is also sent to the black child in the school. But will this child, girl or boy, understand the implications of this ideal family? One doesn't think so, because when the child comes back home, and it's a child from the poor family, and it's of black color, and it bears the burden of prejudice all the time, then it can't think of, this is the house, it is green and white, it has a red door, because there is no red door, and maybe the colors are not green and white. And green and white also refer to the white walls and the greenery around the house. And then it may not be exactly the mother, father, Dick and Jane. It might be two girls, it might be two boys, and if there are two boys and a father, then there are three males in the family, and there is only one woman that is supposed to be the mother. And if these conditions are that of poverty, then one can't relate to this kind of an ideal that the school curriculum presents before all the American citizens. Now the interesting thing about such description of a beautiful household in America by this author is that the very way in which the text is printed, the words are printed, that shows that this ideal finally will enter into some kind of a crisis. So the same lines that are printed in the beginning in a very impressive fashion, very soon are presented slightly differently. I perhaps can think that you will be able to see the printing. See the first. Anyway, let me describe to you that the printing is like this. That the printing is like this. That there is a proper distance between the words, and there is a proper distance between the lines, and it's very impressive. The same description is printed in a different manner in the next paragraph, and here the lines have been squeezed, and the sentences run along each other, and some of the punctuation marks have been removed. So when you, without the punctuation marks and without proper distancing, when you read, then you start reading fast. So in a way, the same ideal starts occurring to us, described in a manner that is speedy. In the third case, the same lines are printed, and in this case, all the punctuations have been removed, all the letters have come together, and it becomes a jumble. Now just see, the author is trying to show that it's not merely the text to which all this has happened, but perhaps that if you imagine the life that you live in society in the terms of pictures, then those pictures also come together. They are squeezed into a pattern which is no pattern, and there is complete anarchy, and finally you seem to be drowning in the sea of pictures, and you don't make any sense out of it. So what does it show? It's a metaphor, and the author is using this metaphor to tell us that ideals have no place in such a world, and that if you have to understand those ideals, then understand them in the process of disintegration. This disintegration has occurred in the course of the text, and it's also going to occur in the course of life. The next point that I discuss is that the novel does not go into the reasons why the blacks suffer this way, the prejudice that I am talking about. She doesn't want to discuss the reasons, because that's not the job of the writer. The writer observes, the writer makes statements, the writer presents and represents, but the writer does not generally analyze. The writer creates, the writer constructs, and that is what is clear from the beginning itself. The writer says to herself, or the narrator in the story tells herself, that the novel will tell us not why things happened, but how they happened. So how is important? The process in which things happen one way rather than the other. So the purpose of literature appears to be, through this novel, to be of the kind that it tells you how things happened. And if you want to understand, if you want to comprehend, if you want to see why they happen, then you have to work a bit extra hard yourself as a reader to go back to the text, to analyze the nature of the questions raised and the characters, etc., in your own mind, and then you have to reach your own conclusions. That is the other purpose of the writer and the writing, that it tells you the how, the process, and from there you are led to analyze things yourself, and then you reach the knowledge of reasons that might have caused all this. So the writer has very clearly stated in the beginning that she'll talk not about why, but about how things happened. Also ask this question from yourself. Let me ask this question from myself, whether the color of the skin and the eye is important in life. Now it's a very simple question, it's a very difficult question. Simple because all of us have a fascination for the white color, but the color is white only in the case of the skin. Beneath the skin we are the same human beings all over the world. So just because one is black or one is white, does it give a chance to the person with a white skin or a black skin that one is superior or inferior? I think nobody will agree that the color of the skin decides whether you have good qualities or bad qualities, whether you are inferior or superior in life. And if you are a Negro, if you are a black person, if you are from Africa, if your roots are in Africa, and if you become a citizen of America, then does that make any difference with respect to your qualities? There can be any number of white people who might have bad characteristics, what we consider wrong ideas, wrong notions, and there would be any number of blacks who have good qualities, who are virtuous, who are sweet, who are nice, who are friendly, and vice versa. There might be some good white people and there might be some bad black people. So it doesn't depend on the color of one's skin or the color of one's eyes. And when you read this novel and when you see the pain suffered by different characters, then you realize that it is just the question of the color of the skin, and it doesn't make any sense to a person who is a proper student of literature and who has seen and realized in one's own mind and imagination what are called humanistic, egalitarian, democratic, secular values. Now from here one goes to a bit of the story of Pecola. She is the daughter, as I already said, of Charlie and Pauline Breedlove. Now these are the names of the father and the mother, and she doesn't have any equation with either the father or the mother. The mother all the time is slogging, all the time is working hard in the kitchen, and she's also working outside as a maid servant. She gets the money the hard way, earns all this money the hard way, then she comes back and she's running the family. The father is more or less totally irresponsible, because of which the girl has suffered, and because of which later on, as I said, she'll be molested, she'll be raped by her father. Now the question that one can ask is, are the father and mother responsible for this? Now the simple and direct answer would be yes. But the author, being a sensitive individual, would see that one has to go back to the times when this father was a small boy and when this mother was a small girl. Because after all, there was a time when they were born and they had their parents, and then they faced their peculiar problems. Now, when this history is given, that the father was not treated properly by his own father and mother, and that he was neglected, and that he was left to the mercy of people outside the home, then of course later on when he turns 20 or so and marries a woman, then he will behave the same way as his father did to him. He will not be kind to his own children. So Choli, initially, when he was a child, he had a very traumatized childhood. He had a very difficult childhood, and that took away all the good qualities and values from him, and later on he proved to be a very bad father to his own daughter. What about the mother? Initially, the mother also was a girl. She was as innocent, and she looked at the world with fascination. Later on, she was married to this man who was himself, becoming more and more, insensitive. And when she lived with this insensitive man for a long time, she had children from him. Then, of course, she became totally different, and she might have lost faith, in the human values, but for the reason that being a mother, she tried to support her children. And this is the reason why, because of the mother, Piccola, of course, even after she had suffered at the hands of the father, was able to survive with some sense of dignity and sensitivity. So one says that the surrounding of the home, so far as the girl is concerned, has been unfortunate. What about the world outside? Outside the home? Well, there is a school and there is a street. In the school, Piccola is not considered equal by the rest of the students, and when she walks back home in the company of her friends, then on the way also she is abused and molested by the black boys. Black boys who think that she is not a person worth talking to, and then they can push her around, and some of them can try to take liberties with her, and she has to bear all this with a sense of pain, with a sense of chagrin. So that's what happens to Piccola. She doesn't have a place in her home safe enough for her. Outside in the street, she is not safe. In the school also, she faces a sense of prejudice. So where can she belong? This is the question, and it's very difficult to answer such a question, because a child of this kind will never be happy, and will always think that the world in which she lives is a world that is full of bad people, full of people who are violent, who are insensitive, who are cold-blooded, and who have no sense of mercy. But there are other children like her. There are people in the neighborhood, and there are many girls also. The other black girls, maybe they are not as black as she is. Maybe some of them have better looking, better looks. They may have better eyes than her in terms of color, etc. But then, being black and being women, they will understand her problems. And there are two such characters in the novel. One character is called Claudia, and the other character, she is not as important in terms of the role, but then she always keeps company with Claudia, and her name is Frida. What is the role of Claudia in the novel? Now, one can say that even though it is the story of Piccola, Piccola is not generally made to speak her own problems. Her problems are presented through the memory of Claudia. So in a way, in this novel, even though the central character or the protagonist is Piccola, the story is told in the words of Claudia, another girl of the same age, a bit junior, but the same age, and she has been watching the tragedy of Piccola. Now imagine that another child, a girl child, looking at and bearing witness to the happenings to Piccola, describing her fate and her impressions of the fate of Pecola in her own words. So this novel, in a way, is able to communicate all the experiences that Pecola suffers in the words of, in the articulation of the other character called Claudia. This shows that the novelist is in a way saying that the problem is not unique to, is not peculiar to this person, but is also shared, if not directly, at least imaginatively, by Claudia. Now the other thing is that all these children, and they have stayed together, not at Pecola's house, but in the other home of Claudia and Frida, and there they were together, and there they saw that trauma. The trauma was that at one point of time, the girl lost her child, the pregnant girl, pregnant from her father, she lost her child, and children didn't know what to do. I don't know how to morally judge this kind of a fate of the girl, but then if you have the situation which is similar to Pecola, then what should one say? Should the child be saved? Should the child be aborted? Should the child be allowed to die? Now this is a moral question, and this is a moral question in the American context also. And the proper answer perhaps is, and children understand it better than the father and the mother. Children understand it better than the men and women in the neighborhood, because all men and women in the neighborhood think that the child should not be allowed to live, that the child should die. But these three children, they think for some time that the child should live, because it's not the problem. It is not the let's say it's not in the hands of the child that it was conceived in a wrong kind of union, in an immoral, incestuous kind of a union. But then this is the humanist view, and the author truly appreciates the point of view of these children, and she thinks that the child had a right to live. But anyway, as things happen, the child dies in the process of these girls saving the life of the child, and well, the entire community heaves a sigh of relief. Then it becomes, because of this reason, not the story just of one child, but of all children of that age and facing that kind of situation. And let me tell you that these people would be millions in the American society. Now imagine that Negroes started coming from Africa, let's say, and that's why they are called Afro-Americans in America. And initially they came as slaves, and they worked very hard. Sometimes they would work as hard as 20 hours a day, and whatever wealth America as a country came to acquire through decades and centuries, that wealth was substantially created by the black labor. So in a way, if the country is rich, it is rich because the blacks have been made to work very hard to create this wealth for America and its white population. And the author is aware of this. So there would be economic reasons also. And secondly, that this wealth is colored with blood. It is smeared with blood, because after all, a large number of people through generations have been creating this wealth, and in the process of creating this wealth, they have died, but their wealth has remained, and that has made the life of the American white males and women also very luxurious and very happy. So you can see that there is a kind of irony, and this irony is that initially it appears that everything is fine with the world, that you have a very fine and impressive locale in America. You have big buildings, you have fine roads, you have transport with good transport system, etc., nice cars, and that America is a world of wealth. But look at the same America, and I'm talking about the America of today, an America which has been seen by this writer Toni Morrison, this lady, she was born, as I said, in 1931, so from 1940 onwards, and she's been seeing it till today. And when she chooses to write, then she shows the other face of America, that face of America where this kind of social prejudice rules and controls the life of the people. From here, we go to the character again, Pecola. What does she want in life now? Now that all these things have happened to her, what does she aim to achieve in life? Now imagine that she is a young girl, and now she wants to become beautiful. and her definition of beautiful, as I said, is that she should have blue eyes. Can she have blue eyes? Well, a child cannot understand that it's difficult to have the choice in the case of the color of the eye, and that it's a process over which nobody has any control. Whether one has blue eyes or black eyes or brown eyes, they are only naturally. But she thinks perhaps that if she had blue eyes, then she would be beautiful. And well, you can have blue eyes if you like, but only in imagination. You can't have blue eyes in reality. And the author that way is trying to assess another layer of human experience where the mind will construct a different picture with its own ability, and that picture will be totally at variance with, totally different from the picture in the reality of life. So there is a character in the novel, and this character tells her that, well, she can have perhaps blue eyes, and this character is talking to her in a kind of imaginative level. So she, for some time, for a short while, she thinks that she has got the blue eyes, and then she feels happy. But finally she wakes up. It's a kind of daydreaming that she was having, and finally she wakes up, and then she realizes that that was a dream, and it is difficult for her, almost impossible for her, to have this kind of happiness that her eyes turn blue. Then the Piccola. Should she be called tragic as a character? Well, once again, if one calls her a tragic character, then one has to think of the definitions of tragedy and the form of tragedy in English drama and in English novel. There are tragic novels and there are tragic plays also. And what generally happens in the tragic novels and the tragic plays is that at the end the main character dies, and after that there is no hope for such people to live in future. That's why they are called tragic novels or plays. Is this novel such a novel then? That ultimately the author has realized that there is no hope for the blacks in this world, and particularly in the American world? Now I pose this question and I want you to ponder over it. My own view is that this novel, in spite of showing us the difficulties of the life of Piccola, is not tragic in its spirit, because this girl has friends, this girl has associates who sympathize with her, and they don't die. And Piccola also will run mad, will go mad, but then this madness is a different kind of reaction and response to the actual world. Others will support her all the time. For instance, when she was coming back from the school, and when those black boys tormented her, then Claudia lost temper with them, and then she told them, she scolded them that they were wrong. Now, if Piccola is not one, if there are thousands and lakhs of Piccolas, then there would be thousands and lakhs of Claudias also. And you think of Piccola, but you also think of Claudia, because both of them are inseparable. One is the sufferer, the other is the witness to suffering, and the person who is witness to suffering is also having sympathy for that kind of individual who is suffering. And you can see that if the humanity is mixed like this, then of course there is hope in the world, that this world finally will end on a positive note. And the writer doesn't give us any specific hint of a positive note, but that the people struggle, that the people are angry, shows that, well, they will not allow this world to go in the wrong direction, in the direction of destroying itself and destroying its humanity. So what one sees is that Piccola has tragic circumstances, and very few people sympathize with her, particularly of the older generation, and whether they are her parents or her neighbors or the rest of the people. She has people of her own age who not only sympathize with her, but also share her sense of pain, and they are angry. Now, should people be critical of the circumstances in society and in life if they find that they are not able to fulfill their aims and dreams in such a life? Now, once again, you have to ask this question. We have to ask this question not only in the context of Piccola, but also in our own context. What should be our response to difficult things, to difficult surroundings, to difficult questions? Now, two answers are possible. One answer is that these situations are not our handiwork, some other power. So maybe it's society, maybe it is religion, maybe it is God who has created them, and our job is to tolerate and to bear these difficulties. It's a kind of fate we are born with. It's our destiny. This is one view. And most of us might believe that if there are problems and difficulties in life, they are created by a power beyond our control, and that it is our fate. Whereas there are others who think that you should not succumb to, you should not accept the argument of fate, and don't bear whatever is offered to you in terms of difficulties. What you do is that you try to understand first how, as the novel does, and then why these things happen. And in any case, even if you don't exactly understand why they happen, because why is a particular argument that takes you into the political arena. Because if you are asking the question why, then maybe at some point of time, if not you, your friends and others, they'll find out from this world as to who are the people who are responsible for the problems of the ordinary masses. And if the society comes to know about it, then of course they will take courage in both the hands, and they'll try to change the world in such a way that human beings in future do not suffer. Now this is the kind of politics that is inherent in such situations, that people sooner or later will understand why the problems that they face happen in their own life. But the question still remains to be answered. How should we respond to a difficult paradigm in our life? How should we respond to the enemies in society? How should we respond to difficulties in society? And well, one answer I've given, that's the answer of fate, and the other answer is understanding. And because understanding is not easy to come by, it's not easy to get easily. Maybe there will be 2 or 3 generations or more, and then lots of other people also will go into this, and they'll tell you as to why these things happen, and then politics will take its course. But then in the process of this, there will be people who will remain unsatisfied. There will be people who will remain angry. Should we be angry? Or should we be just accepting these things, thinking that this is what God's will is, or this is what fate has ordained for us? And what is the role of anger in life? Now this is a question that I am particularly posing to you. What's the role of anger in life? Should we be angry or not? Now most people say that we should stay at peace, we should be balanced, we should be this, that, etc., and that we should not be angry. And of course, you know that anger can be violent and anger can be destructive also. But then that anger can be destructive and violent. Should we stop being angry and accept things as they are, just because we think that perhaps God has, or some other power beyond our control has said this? Now the author has taken a position on this, and that is through Piccola. Of course, as I said earlier, Piccola does not generally talk, and she doesn't tell us about her situation. She is presented as a third person, and the narrator is Claudia. But then this is what the narrator tells about Piccola. I read these lines and I'll comment on them and tell you what the author seems to be aiming at. This is what we read in the novel about Piccola when she is angry. And the quotation begins, "Anger stirs and wakes in her. It opens its mouth, and like a hot-mouthed puppy, laps up the dredges of her shame." When you are facing, or I am facing shame in life, then if my reaction is that I should be angry, then the shame is taken care of. Then the shame is removed, because I am angry, therefore I want to struggle in order to get back my sense of honor and dignity. And that anger is a very valuable response to the difficult times and situations, and this is what Piccola is being thought in terms of. Then the quotation continues, "Anger is better. There is a sense of being in anger, a reality and presence. Anger is a reality and a presence, an awareness of worth." Naturally, if one is angry, then one is angry because one doesn't like certain things, and those things should be changed with one's intervention. That is perhaps the suggestion. But then the author says that an awareness of worth is what anger is. And then finally, and this is a statement that all of us should cherish in our memory, in our life, the statement is, anger is a lovely surging. It is there in us, and it makes us lovely. And it's something that conducts things in such a manner in our life that we take courage in both our hands and start looking at the world around us critically. So what I say is that through such a quotation, the author is asserting the necessity of protest, and that we can very clearly see that this happens. Now this is how I present the argument that there are people who suffer, there are people who face problems in life, and they suffer because they are black, because they are women, because they are children, and they suffer not merely at the hands of the whites, but also at the hands of the males in their own community. For instance, Pecola has not suffered as much from the whites as she has suffered from the actions of her own father and the rest of the males around her. The novel also talks about the whites in the novel and the way the white males particularly exploit the black women and the mulattoes. Now mulattoes are a mixed breed. They are the products of a union between a white parent and a black parent, and their color after some time becomes less black and they become quite attractive. And there is a kind of hierarchy, the superiority in the mulattoes and inferiority in the blacks, and it has come to the fate of, it has come to the situation of Pecola that she is blacker than the rest of the Afro-American citizens in the country. So there are hierarchies among the blacks also, and these hierarchies is what the author has particularly emphasized in the novel. Finally, I make the point that this novel uses, apart from the peculiar narrative technique where there are two narrators, Claudia is a narrator, but Claudia, being a child, cannot narrate everything that Pecola has suffered, and the author has created a second narrator, which is called in English criticism the omniscient narrator, the person who was there. Because if the person was not there, then we wouldn't have been there. Maybe it's the author. Maybe the author, when one is talking about the story, is directly or indirectly observing the phenomenon and presenting through words for the benefit of the reader. But let's not say it's the author. Let's say that the author has created another narrator, and this narrator knows everything. This narrator was there at every point of time, in every situation in the novel. So this omniscient narrator, the narrator who knows everything, and Claudia, these two create the picture of Pecola, the person whom we talk about. So I reached the conclusion then that the author is presenting innocent, good, nice human beings, all of them young, immature adolescents, face to face with a society which is driven by prejudices on the base of color, on the base of one's origins, etc., whether you are from America, whether you are white or you are black, etc., and that the qualities are not kept in mind for assessing the worth of human beings. So this is a kind of social prejudice that the novel is talking about, and I believe that the author has presented before the reader a kind of situation with honesty and courage, and it is because of this courage and honesty that the author finally drew the attention not merely of critics but of the rest of the world, and she became so very well known in the literary, cultural and other circles that finally she got the Nobel Prize. This novel is in your course. Read it carefully and read it from the point of view of the technique that the author is using. And on this particular point, I'll end the argument today. The novel, in spite of being written in prose, because novels are generally written in prose, this novel has a kind of poetic excellence, a kind of poetic worth that is not seen in other novels. The dialogues may or may not be actually spoken by the characters. Most of the dialogues happen inside the mind of the character, etc. And maybe there are descriptions which do not make sense as prose. There are a large number of symbols, etc., and these work together. Certain gaps are left between words and sentences, and these have to be filled up by the imagination of the characters. And this way, because a kind of concentration is achieved in the novel, because of this novel has finally become a kind of poetic document a poetic thing that tells us as how life can be interpreted in ways that reason alone cannot be useful. So we conclude with this, and if there are questions regarding this novel, then I'd be glad to respond to the questions. Thank you.